Great to be here. Thanks for coming out tonight. Well, I'm David Holt. This is Will McIntyre. I live up in Fairview, North Carolina, just right up the road. Will lives in Hendersonville. We've been friends for 40 years?
42 years, I think, we figured.
Traveled all over the world together and have been working on a television show here in North Carolina called David Holt's State of Music that some of you may have seen. But here tonight, we're here to play for some of the old mountain music that I've collected over the last 45 years. And I want to show you some of the people. I love photography as well as music, and so I've taken pictures of all my mentors. Here's a 105-year-old Aunt Zipporah Rice from Sodom, North Carolina. She always said things that kind of made you stop and think a minute. She said, "Honey, time may be a great healer, but it ain't no beauty specialist." Here's her old song called Black-Eyed Susie. It's got a little part for you. When I sing, "Hey, hey," you answer back with Black-Eyed Susie. Just follow Will. You'll do good. Here we go. My true love's black-eyed Daisy. If I don't see her, I'll go crazy. My true love lives up the river. A few more jumps and I'll be with her. Hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey. All right, this is the advanced group. They got it right off the bat.
They're Baptist, I can tell.
She and I went blackberry picking. She got mad and I dug a licking. Ducks on the mill pond, geese in the ocean. Devil in the pretty girl when she takes a notion. Hey, hey,
Black-eyed Susie.
hey, hey,
Black-eyed Susie.
hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, let's hit the banjo.
Hey!
Well, we'll get married next Thanksgiving. I'll lay around, she'll make a living. She'll cook flapjacks, I'll cook gravy, green that chicken, someday maybe. Hey, hey,
Black-eyed Susie.
hey, hey,
Black-eyed Susie.
hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, one more time now. Oh, hey, hey,
Black-eyed Susie.
hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey. So I'm playing the old-timey mountain style of banjo called clawhammer style, where you make your hand like a claw and you hammer with it. It's different than the more modern three-finger style rolling banjo. This has got a more loping kind of a sound. It's the original style of banjo that came from Africa with the banjo a couple of hundred years ago. But I was inspired to play by this fellow right here, Ralph Stanley, who's one of the great bluegrass banjo players, but he learned to play the old clawhammer style from his mother. And so that's what got me here, really. I was going to college at UC Santa Barbara, went to a concert of Ralph's. There were about this many people there. And after the show, I said, "Ralph, where can I go to learn that style that your mother plays?" He said, "Oh, you got to go to Asheville, there's lots of music." He said, "Galax, there's lots of music. Mount Airy, there's lots of music. Freeze, Virginia." So I said, "Great, I'm going back." That was 1969. Came back here and pretty much never looked back. So I'm going to play one of these old clawhammer tunes, let you hear it. And then about halfway through, I'm going to say, clap along, because this music is made for moving to. That's what it's about. It's dance music. So we're going to play. Let us play it one time through, so you can just hear the kind of the lovely melody. This is the first tune played on the first night of the Grand Ole Opry by an old fiddler named Uncle Jimmy Thompson. It's called Little Billy Wilson. That night was November 28th, 1925. So we'll think about old Uncle Jimmy. Here we go. Okay, clap along.
Man, David, these folks got some rhythm there.
They were right in there.
You know, we do a lot of school concerts together, and a lot of times you can always tell when a school doesn't have a music teacher, because when we say clap along, it sounds like this, you know. It's just, which is okay. We like applause. There's nothing wrong with that, but not in the middle of the song, though.
I've been searching out old folks who played music for most of my life, and this is the oldest person I ever met. Her name was Susie Brunson. She was the oldest person in the world in 1992. When I took this picture, she was almost 122. She lived with her youngest daughter, who was 89, and she was the only one still living out of 12 children. Mary, her daughter, said her mother had been telling her what to do since the Hoover administration. So I would go down there and play the banjo for her, because of course she was born in 1870, so the banjo, she loved the sound of the banjo and the guitar and all that. But she always wanted me to learn to play the washboard, because she said that was the only instrument they had in the black community in Bamberg, South Carolina in the 1870s, the only instrument they had. Now I knew if that was true, it must be pretty special the way they played it. And so I asked her, I said, you know, Susie, if you will teach me how to do it, I will get a washboard and learn how to play it. She said, sure. So, shopped around for the Stradivarius of washboards. It is the Zinc King lingerie model, in case you start looking, made about 1917. And Susie said, just take thimbles and put on your fingers like this. And she said, now, don't scrub it. Don't scrub it like you see the people on TV do. She was talking about the Cajun player. She said, don't. Not like that. She said, just tap it lightly. She said, because we had to do all our music on that instrument, so it had to be pretty subtle. She said, just tap it, put a little wood block down at the bottom, a little hollowed out 2x4, a little tin cup at the side. I bought a T-model Ford with a pistol and a ring, had 2 front wheels, one back spring. It wouldn't sit too good cause the seat was a plank. All fall to pieces, it was hard to crank, ham bone. Now when it start, gonna let it toot, run on nothing but whiskey and tobacco juice, ham bone. I had the great fortune of playing with Doc Watson for the last 14 years of his life, and he was one of our great American musicians, certainly one of the great folk musicians of all time. And so we traveled around for 14 years playing, and one night we were sitting on stage, and he played this old harmonica tune he learned when he was a kid called Rain Crow Bill, and I thought, that would be perfect with Susie Brunson's style of washboard playing. So here we get Doc Watson meeting Susie Brunson.
That's the home entertainment center of the 1800s right there, David Holt.
So when I came to the mountains, I was looking for people that played the banjo, but I began to find people right off the bat that played all sorts of unusual things, like the washboard, or this instrument right here called the mouth bow. Here's a fellow named Carluck Stooksbury from up in Norris, Tennessee, playing this mouth bow. Let me show you what it looks like.
Catastrophe on the stage here. Bad gravity.
It's just a stick with a string on it. And the old timers didn't even use a guitar string. They used a catgut. Put the string up to your mouth, the wood up to your mouth, and just move your mouth bigger or smaller, and it changes the note a little bit, something like this. Clearly, that's the oldest stringed instrument in the world, and was played in most countries in the world at one time or another, but still played in the Southern Mountains. I don't know, maybe the last guy doing it, but I learned from some old guys. So I'm going to do a song that I wrote. Mostly what I'm doing for you tonight are folk songs, but I like to write songs too. This is a song about the drovers. The drovers were the guys that were the economic engine of western North Carolina back from 1800 to 1850. They raised cows and hogs and turkeys and drove them from here to Charleston. I took months to drive 10,000 pigs to Charleston, but these guys learned how to do it. And so we're going to do that song. Let's get Denny out here to sing harmony with us. You want to do that one?
Sure.
It's a song called The Drover Song.
You're not gonna do a stump fiddle?
Yeah, why don't you play the stump fiddle, Will? So Will's going to play an instrument I found up in Burnsville, North Carolina. It's called the stump fiddle. It's a very complicated instrument.
You go out and get a stick,
Yeah.
long stick, get a shorter stick, put bottle caps on the long stick, and you got yourself a stump fiddle.
Loose. Sounds like a rattlesnake, kind of a high-tech rattlesnake.
I'm not saying I'm typecast, but this is the one we give to the folks that are kind of slow. You see them?
Well, it takes 3 months on the drover's road to get these hogs to market. I'll come back with a wagon load and a few coins in my pocket. Trading hogs for china dishes, coffee guns and salted fishes. I may never know what rich is, all I do is barter. Drover's work is never done. He's going or he's coming. He'll drive these hogs to Charleston, 10,000 hooves drumming. Trading hogs for china dishes, coffee guns and salted fishes. I may never know what rich is, all I do is barter. We turn our corn into sour mash, from sour mash to whiskey. It'll keep 'em warm on a winter's night and make their lovin' frisky. Trading hogs for china dishes, coffee guns and salted fishes. I may never know what rich is, all I do is barter. That's the mouth though. When I was little, as when you were little, music wasn't just everywhere. You couldn't just find music. You know, there was not that much. There was some on the radio. There wasn't that much on TV, and you certainly didn't have iPods and get any song you wanted. So we didn't have much music in my house. My mother did buy 2 records, I remember, the Tennessee Waltz and 16 Tons. And I love that 16 Tons because just the simple rhythm of that and that snare drum and Tennessee Ernie Ford singing the thing was so great. I love that song. We played that record so much you could hear what was playing on the other side. It was an old 78 RPM record, so you can imagine how excited I was when I started playing on Hee Haw in 1980 and got to meet Tennessee Ernie Ford. He was the bass singer in the gospel quartet, so we got to be good friends, and we want to do that song, get you to sing along with us if you want. This is a song written by Merle Travis, the great coal mining singer. Find my
Here, plug in. It's
plug over here. Is that DI on, Vince? Great. Red eye? Well, some people say a man's made out of mud, A poor man's made out of muscle and blood and skin and bone. Well, a mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. It's coming back, I can see. Well, I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up my shovel and I walked to the mine. I loaded 16 tons of number 9 coal, and the straw boss said, "Oh, well, bless my soul. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store." Well, if you see me coming, you better step aside. A lot of men didn't, and a lot of men died. One fist of iron and the other of steel. If the right one don't get you, then the left one will. You lose 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. There was a wonderful guitar player that lived down the road here in Morganton, North Carolina. Her name was Etta Baker. Let me show you her picture. So Etta lived to be 93 and playing guitar an hour a day that her whole life.
Other side did.
No, this is her at 93.
Oh.
This is her at 86. When I was taking her around North Carolina to play in the schools and different concerts around, she was a wonderful lady who had a wonderful style of guitar playing that she learned from her father and grandfather. And it was a beautiful style that we don't have. That's all right. We don't have Piedmont. I mean, we don't have Delta blues here in North Carolina. We have what we call Piedmont blues. And she played this style where she'd play the bass notes with her thumb and then add the melody in with her middle and index finger. And this is kind of one of her most famous songs called Railroad Bill. It's got a nice little chorus if you want to try singing. It goes like this. Now Railroad Bill's so mean and so bad. Took a swing at his mama, took a shot at his dad, and then he ride, and the chorus goes, Railroad Bill, lights his cigar with a $10 bill, and then he ride. Well, now call the doctor, and the doctor came. Said you're not sick, Bill, you're just insane, and then he ride. Here we go. Railroad Bill, lights his cigar with a $10 bill, and then he ride. She had a beautiful lick that went like this. Got a 38 special on a 44 frame. Oh, how can he miss when he got dead aim? And then he ride. Here we go. Railroad Bill, lights his cigar with a $10 bill, and then he ride. This is a tune that Doc Watson recorded. Let me show you a picture of Doc in case you don't know him. Very powerful looking guy, was a powerful guy, blind from birth basically, but became one of America's great musicians. Just grew up in a poor little mountain community in Deep Gap, North Carolina. Family didn't even have a horse. They plowed with an ox. Didn't have a car, didn't have a truck or anything. So he had to learn pretty much by listening to recordings on the radio, or live performers on the radio. There weren't recordings on the radio when he was a child. And this is one of those. It's called Traveling Man, from a fellow down here in Spartanburg, North Carolina, named Pink Anderson. Right out.
Good eye.
Let me tell you about a traveling man. His home is down in Tennessee. Makes his living stealing chickens and anything else you can see. One day the sheriff got behind that boy and made him take to the road. Never was a passenger train so fast Joe couldn't get on board, 'cause he was a traveling man. Must have been a traveling man. Traveling, rambling man. He was the swiftest in the land. Gambling, rambling Joe. They knowed him in every town. He wouldn't stay put, he wouldn't give up. I bet he never settled down. Well, he hoboed the great Titanic, thought he'd try out the ocean blue. When he saw that iceberg coming, right over the side he flew. The other passengers, they hollered and shouted, they said, look at that great big fool. But when that old boat was singing, Joe was shooting craps into Liverpool. And he was singing, traveling man, must have been a traveling man. Traveling, rambling man, he was the swiftest in the land. Gambling, rambling Joe, they knowed him in every town. He wouldn't stay put, he wouldn't give up, I bet he never settled down. Let me play that thing. Now the police finally caught poor old Joe and sentenced him to hang one day. The solemn old judge looked at Joe and said,
You got anything to say?
and Joe looked at the judge and jury, said, bow down your head in prayer. He crossed his legs, he winked one eye, went sailing off through the air. 'Cause he was a traveling man, must have been a traveling man. Traveling, rambling man, he was the swiftest in the land. Gambling, rambling Joe, they knowed him in every town. He wouldn't stay put, he wouldn't give up, I bet he never settled down. I've had some wonderful mentors. Chet Atkins was a good friend of mine. He said, David, just figure out where the bad notes are and stay off them. I got to do a show with Steve Allen one time, and I always loved his comedy. You know, I'm talking about Steve Allen, the comedian. And we were doing a show in Seattle, and he loved to listen to this radio show I used to do for public radio called Riverwalk Jazz. And he loved jazz, and so I felt emboldened to ask him what advice he had for a younger performer. He said, never leave your wallet backstage. I said, really, after 60 years, that's it? He said, well, that, and always see if the audience has questions. He said, look, I'm about to go out right now. I'll show you how it works. He said, because at worst, you answer a question. At best, maybe something fun happens. So he goes out on stage and just asked, first off, if people have any questions. And they did. And you still play piano, Steve? And he said, yes, he still practices every day. Somebody said, Steve, you know this concert is sponsored by Intel. Do you even know what a semiconductor is? He said, Lawrence Welk? I was once riding along with Doc Watson, and he wasn't a man of pithy sayings, but he came up with this one time, and I just thought it was so great. He said, "David, you know you have to be yourself or nobody will know who you are." Yeah, Doc, that's right. Here's my favorite song I learned from Doc Watson. You know, he was blind, like I said, and so he didn't like to teach people stuff because he knew he had learned odd chords, not from books or from other people, but if he wanted a chord that sounded like this, he would have to just make it up. Or like this, he would just make his own fingering and figure out the chords. So he didn't want to show other people his sort of non-standard guitar playing. But I did learn this one from him. It's called Ready for the Times to Get Better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain. I've got to find a way out. I'm getting tired of this continual rain. A change is coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time, no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. A long, lonely time, no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. Try to take from me what I cannot give. No happiness can I find. I've got a dream that I am trying to live. It's burning holes in my mind. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. A long, lonely time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better.
I think Fran said that we have known each other for a long time. Denny and David and I and Jenny, David's wife, have been friends for over 40 years. And in the last 4 years, we've been working on a show for PBS called David Holt's State of Music. And we're happy to say that season 2 is going to launch on April 1st. And I think April 3rd, sorry, yeah. I think you'll be seeing it in South Carolina and North Carolina Public Television, actually all over the country.
It's a nationwide show. Yeah.
We're nationwide on that.
So look for that. We did 3 half-hour seasons in season 1. They've already played last year, and then starting in April will be 8. Is it 8 total?
8 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, that'll start then, and it'll be each week. So watch that. I guess you get UNC TV here, or
Probably
829.
ETV, probably ETV as well, out of South Carolina.
North and south.
North and
Yeah,
South, that's
then
right.
both will, UNC TV is our presenting station, so-called, to PBS, but ETV runs it as well, so if you miss it, we're really hoping, we got some wonderful, just terrific performers from all over this region, as far down east as Kinston, North Carolina, an AME Zion choir, senior choir of the AME Zion Church down in Kinston. We have a wonderful new talent, young woman from out of East Tennessee State University. So that's how far west we went, and that's how far east we went. But most of it tends to be the mountain area, and we have some performers that that you might recognize. Steep Canyon Rangers, anybody that toured with Steve Martin quite a bit, for a while. Kruger Brothers out of North Wilkesboro, Wilkes County. We've got, just terrific and a great variety. So anyway, check it out. April, it'll be running starting in April, but then they'll, it's public television. They'll run the reruns forever. They're still running a show that David did in the 70s, so,
No, the Folkways show, have you seen Folkways on UNC TV? So this is a show I first did in 1980, and I just saw the other night the very first one. I was like 10 or something. No, I was actually 30. It was 1980, and it was just remarkable to see that they're still running that. And I had like a jacket on with a big collar sticking out of it. It was so antiquated. But anyway, the show was about homesteading, so what difference did it make? So we're going
It's
to do
the
a
same,
song
David.
from one of my other mentors, Mr. Grandpa Jones, who was a wonderful fellow and very, very wonderful to me. I once asked Grandpa, I said, Grandpa, what advice would you give to me to have a long career? He said, David, he talked like that, just remember you meet the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. He said, take care of the words you say and make them short and sweet. You never know which words you'll have to eat. So Will's going to sing a little bit of his song called Melinda.
It's a sad song.
Oh, yeah.
Not really.
Sad
Oh.
in some ways. Sorry.
Oh, you ought to see Melinda, the fairest in the land. Her nose is like a big hoe cake, her cheek is like a ham. 6 feet and over, her hair's a beautiful red. She used to stand on top of a chair and she wanted to scratch her head. Don't you cry, Melinda, don't you cry for me. I'm going away to leave you way back in Tennessee. I'll be back some old day when the corn is in the air to pick up on the old banjo for you, Melinda dear. If I was an elephant, how happy I would be. I'd lock Melinda in my trunk, I'd throw away the key. If as an alligator, I'd go out for a swim. I'd open up my alligator and scoop Melinda in. Don't you cry, Melinda, don't you cry for me. I'm going away to leave you way back in Tennessee. I'll be back some old day when the corn is in the air. Pick up on the old banjo for you, Melinda, play it, boy. The first time I met her, I never will forget. She threw herself into my lap, she gave me such a fit. She whispered very gently, you are a handsome chap. She broke my new suspenders and sat upon my lap. Hey, don't you cry, Melinda, don't you cry for me. I'm going away to leave you way back in Tennessee. I'll be back some old day when the corn is in the ear to pick up on the old banjo for you, Melinda dear. Thank you.
So I want to tell you about the very first instrument I ever learned. They were the spoons and the bones. You've seen people play the spoons before probably, but maybe not the bones. These are just rib bones from a cow, and these are carved wooden bones. They're a rhythm instrument like this. Shake them back and forth. Well, I never went to college, never went to school, but when it come to boogie, I'm an educated fool. Well, grab your partner, pat her on the head, 'cause you don't like biscuits, feed her cornbread. So my family was from Alamance County, North Carolina, and they moved, this fellow, John Oscar Holt, moved from Alamance County to Midland, Texas in 1858, taking the bones and my family with him. And so I grew up in Texas. Here's a picture of my dad. See, we look a lot alike. Picture of my dad playing the bones. All the male members of the family had to learn to play the bones. Now, this wasn't a musical family, like I said. These guys were doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. But somehow the bones from this fellow, at least this fellow was 5 generations back, that we know about. And so I want to show you what they sound like with music, because that's really what they're for. So, Will, let's play a little bit of Whiskey Before Breakfast. Oh.
My favorite breakfast food.
So I'm going to play one more weird instrument for you and then see if anybody has any questions. This is an old mountain banjo. I have the original, which was made in 1860 or so, and I had it copied because that's a museum piece, really. And the guy copied it exactly, and it sounds just like the old one, too. Groundhog hide for a head. The old timers would use cat guts for strings. These instruments were hard on the cats, but made great little instruments. No metal parts on it. It's just, these guys, these young mountain men, came back from the Civil War, having seen the banjo for the first time, and they saw banjos with metal parts, but they had no way of casting those parts back in the mountains. And so they were very clever young men, and they figured out a way to make a banjo with just wood and skin. And it's got a great low, funky tone. This is the very first tune Doc Watson learned on the banjo. It's called Georgie Buck. You can hear that combination of African, English, Scotch, Irish, all mixed in this tune, and that's what makes mountain music what it is. Red Eye. Well, now my name is Georgie Buck. Never had no luck. Always been treated this way, boys. Always been treated this way. I said, oh me, oh Lordy my. Always been treated this way. Well, cornbread and beans is all I ever seen, and I ain't gonna be treated this way, boy. Ain't gonna be treated this way. I said, oh me, oh Lordy my, ain't gonna be treated this way. Let's play, Will. Well, now Georgie Buck is dead, and the last words he said was, dig me a hole in the ground, boys, dig me a hole in the ground. I said, oh me, oh Lordy my, dig me a hole in the ground. I said, oh me, oh Lordy my, dig me a hole in the ground. Any questions about anything you'd like to know about the music or the songs or anything at all? Anything?
Not everybody at one time. We can't handle it.
Yes.
How old were you when you started playing any instrument?
Yeah, so I was 10 when my dad showed me how to play the spoons, and then shortly after that, the bones. And then I really took it on myself. When I was 14, I started taking drum lessons and played in rock and roll bands until I was 20 about, and that's when I fell in love with the banjo and started collecting mountain music. And finished college and just moved here just to learn it. And I didn't really expect to make it a career. It just started happening, which has been great. It's been a great career. Anything else? Yes.
Playing as many instruments as you do, you must practice 36 hours a day.
I wish. I try to get up every morning and practice for at least an hour because, yeah, you got to keep it up. And especially, I just turned 70. I've noticed this is really a turning point for your muscles, these little teeny muscles.
I heard a couple of amens out there, David. You're talking to the choir, brother.
Yeah, that's right.
Still going on in families in the mountains.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Of course, it's changed. It's always been changing. From the beginning, it's been changing. But yeah, there's still lots of families that still play and people that aren't part of musical families. But it seems to me that it runs down through families mostly. Yeah. What else? Anything else?
Play some more.
We can do that. I want to do a song, a John Henry version that on the steel guitar. Talk amongst yourselves.
Right behind you.
Thank you.
That's all right. It's all part of the show, folks. We act lost. It's not really an act, actually.
We don't have to act.
We don't have to act lost. No.
So this thing is called the National Steel Guitar, and these were made in 1927, invented in California to play Hawaiian music on. That was the idea. And people would put the instrument flat on their lap and play it. It's a guitar made of steel. That's why it's called a steel guitar. But today in country music, you see another instrument that's neither made of steel nor is it a guitar. It looks like they're playing an ironing board or something, and that's taken over the name of the steel guitar, but this is the original instrument. And you can play it like a regular guitar, but what it's really for playing bluesy kinds of things. And blues is such a big part of mountain music. We're going to try this song for you from Memphis Slim. It's a great old blues song called Mother Earth. You may hi-hat me all the time. You may never go my way. Mother Earth is laying for you the debt you've got to pay. I don't care how great you are. Don't care what you're worth. When it all ends up, you got to go back to Mother Earth. You may own half a city, even diamonds and pearls. You may have an airplane and fly all over the world. I don't care how great you are. Don't care what you're worth. When it all ends up, you've got to go back to Mother Earth. Now you may play race horses, you may own a racetrack, you may have enough money to buy anything you like. I don't care how great you are, don't care what you're worth. to Mother Earth. We're going to do a song from Etta Baker, like I said, a song called John Henry. Now, Etta Baker loved to play this song on slide guitar. And so when she was, that picture of 93 that I showed you, she went up to the John Henry Cave, which is in Talcott, West Virginia. And the cave is abandoned now. And they built another cave for a tunnel for the train. And so it's just this moss-covered cave with about a foot of water in it. And she was determined to find a spike driven by John Henry himself. So she came back to Morganton and she called me. She said, "You got to come here. I got something for you." So I went to her house and she had she brought me a spike from the John Henry Cave, the C&O tunnel, and she said, "I know John Henry drove this one because he was so strong he bent it." I said, "Thank you, Etta. I'll treasure that."
That's so cool.
So here's her version. Well, John Henry was a little baby sitting on his daddy's knee. Well, he looked all around, saw a little piece of steel, said, "That steel's gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord. That steel's gonna be the death of me." Well, the boy grew up to be a steel driving man, strongest ever seen. Swinging 12 pounds from his hips on down, he could make that old hammer ring, Lord, Lord. He could make that old hammer ring. Let it ring. Well, the captain said to John Henry, "Gonna bring that steam drill around. Gonna put that steam drill out on the job. I'm gonna whoop that old steel on down, Lord, Lord. Gonna whoop that old steel on down." Well, John Henry said to the captain, "A man ain't nothing but a man. And before I let that steam drill beat me down, I'm gonna die with that hammer in my hand, Lord, Lord. Gonna die with that hammer in my hand." With the steam drill driving on the right side, John Henry driving on the left. John Henry beat that old steam drill down, but he hammered his fool self to death, Lord, Lord. He hammered his fool self to death. Well, they took John Henry to the tunnel. They buried him in the sand. Every little woman comes walking by. She says, "There lies my steel driving man, Lord, Lord. There lies my steel driving man. There lies my steel driving man, Lord, Lord. There lies my steel driving man." I think we got one more here for you. This one's a great old tune that I sort of took and rewrote it about the Rock Island Line. And when I was a little boy, when my mother would get mad at my brother and me, this is in Garland, Texas, she would say, "Why don't you boys go out on the railroad tracks and play?" And she wasn't kidding. About a half a mile down Duck Creek through our backyard to go down Duck Creek, there was a trestle, a railroad trestle. And across that trestle came the Rock Island Line on its trip from Chicago to Galveston. And my brother and I thought that was so amazing because we had the Lead Belly record, the old 78 of the Rock Island Line. And here that train was going right across the back of our house, and it said on the side of the train, big orange letters, Rock Island Line. And we were so excited that we were little boys, so we would crawl up under the trestle, and where the dirt slanted like that, we would get as close to the bottom of the tracks as we could and lie down and wait for the 3:15 Rock Island Line train to come, and it would roll right over the top of us. It was so exciting. And we did that until we realized that when people flush a toilet on a train, well, the Rock Island Line had a Texas run from the Windy City down to Galveston. Mama let us play on the railroad tracks, waiting for the freight train to come back, singing the Rock Island Line is a mighty fine line. The Rock Island Line is the road to ride. If you want to ride it like you find it, get your ticket at the station at the Rock Island Line. Well, then under the trestle, on our backs, hear the train roaring down the track. Close my eyes, full of dread, as the Rock Island Line rolls over my head. So the Rock Island Line is a mighty fine line. The Rock Island Line is the road to ride. If you want to ride it like you find it, get your ticket at the station of the Rock Island Line. Crazy, at least possessed, to let that train through our chest. But we just loved the rush we'd feel to be a few inches from the driver's wheel. So the Rock Island Line is a mighty fine line. The Rock Island Line is the road to ride. If you want to ride it like you find it, get your ticket at the station at the Rock Island Line. All right, that was Denny McIntyre singing harmony. Okay, we got one more song here for you. And, you know, as I've traveled around all these years, I've tried to find, I've been around a lot of very old folks, and it's been fascinating to me to ask them two things. One, what was your favorite song? And two, how did you live to be that old? There's a lady that just passed away about 6 months ago in Brooklyn, who was 116 years old, and she said she lived that long by eating bacon every day.
Yay!
I know, that's what I said. And Susie Brunson, the oldest woman in the world in 1992, said she lived that long by being good to everybody and eating ice cream every day. I thought that was
Also
pretty good
yay.
news, too. One of the very first really old people I met was 105-year-old Frank Smith. He had been bodyguard for President Roosevelt, President Teddy Roosevelt. This was 1975 when I met him. And so I said, Frank, you know, I was 20 at the time. I said, what advice would you give to a young man who would like to live that long? He said, 2 things. Always carry a 44. Don't carry nothing smaller. And if they do start shooting at you, you turn sideways, man, that makes you hard to hit, and son, that's how you live a long time. I played a festival in Jacksonville, North Carolina recently, and an old fella came up and he said he was 101 and played the fiddle. Oh, we had a fiddle with us and said, well, play us one, and he did. He could still play. He said his sister wanted to come, but she was 103 and had to mow the lawn. And he wasn't kidding either, and it was a hot Jacksonville day. I said, well, you know, what was her secret? He said, well, she never smoked, and she never drank, and every evening she had a tumbler full of rye whiskey. I said, you just said she never drank. He said, oh, that was just her medicine. Now, Will's mom just passed away. How long ago was it, Will?
In June.
June. One of the most wonderful people you would ever want to meet in your life. And I remember I guess about a week before she passed away, I just happened to ask her. I just said, Mabel, you know, how have you lived to be almost 95? She said, well, I always have a joke. She said, I think you got to have a good sense of humor to live a long time. You can't be grumpy. You need to have a good sense of humor. And I keep a little booklet of jokes that she'd written down over all the years. Or did she have a bunch of those
She
little
had
booklets?
a bunch of little books full of
I
jokes.
hope you saved all those.
Yeah, I think we did.
So I said, okay, well, Mabel, what's your favorite joke then? She said, well, this cardiologist went to a dance and he saw one of his patients dancing and just whooping it up. I mean, he was with a young girl and he was just dancing like crazy. And in the break, he said to him, he said, you look like you're doing pretty good. And he said, well, I am, Doc. I just took your advice. He said, well, what advice did I give you? You said, be careful, carefree, and have a hot mama. He said, no. I said, be careful, you have a heart murmur. So I began to realize that people who lived a long time often had the same philosophy as this lady right here, Deli Norton. Let me show you her picture. She was an old ballad singer from that little community of Sodom, North Carolina. Here's Deli Norton. And she said, well, I love everybody and everybody loves me. And she was right. She loved everybody unconditionally. It was amazing to see. And they just loved her right back. And so she lived to be quite old and still loving everybody. It was really something to see. And I realized that if you want to be happy and satisfied, that it makes no difference how much money you have. You could have millions of dollars like Roy Acuff or very little like Etta Baker, and you could still have a satisfied life if you just loved everybody and they loved you back. And so I wanted to write a song about that. We'll close with that song. Here's your part. If you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, then you'll be satisfied. Try it. If you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, you'll be satisfied. One more time. If you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, then you'll be satisfied. Now if you got a bank account, if you got a bank account, if you got a bank account, then you've got a bank account. But if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, you'll be satisfied. Well, if you got a big fine car, if you got a fancy car, if you got a fancy car, then
You got a fancy car.
but if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, you'll be satisfied. Well, I ask the oldest people what I need to know. Said, find yourself forgiveness, be grateful as you go. Yeah, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, if you got love in your heart, you'll be satisfied. Then you'll be satisfied. You'll be satisfied. Thanks a lot, folks. Jimmy McIntyre, Will McIntyre, David Holt, thank you for having us. Thank you. Thanks so much.